a possibility still, or is that even something that UConn wants to entertain with their own contract turmoil?
Well, you know what? I think that's something that the fact that you haven't heard anything about that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because these things always come out of left field. Just
right.
Because you haven't heard a rumor about the ACC doesn't mean that they haven't talked to UConn. It doesn't mean that they're not interested in UConn. It just means that they maybe do a little better job of keeping a lid on things than the Big 12 was doing. I think that the possibilities for the ACC is if Notre Dame is now unable to really fill out a football schedule because of these leagues expanding to 18 and 20, then maybe they need to join the ACC and UConn becomes the 16th team. Certainly, if Florida State or Clemson or some of the other really power football schools within the ACC find their way out of the conference, which they sound like they're determined to do, then the ACC's got to go somewhere to replace them. And I would think UConn would be in the front of the line. I mean, UConn's basketball profile, and let's not forget their baseball profile. They could be a nice. The ACC is the best fit for UConn, depending on what teams stay there. So I feel like if I were a betting man, guys, I think the ACC is where UConn is eventually going to land. But there are just a few moving parts that haven't moved yet.
As far as we were just at the golf tournament and talking to the UConn basketball, the men's team, they look like they're fired up for this season. Your thoughts on UConn men's basketball and where they are right now?
Well, I think they're in a great place. I mean, they had I think that Dan struck a nice balance, Dan Hurley did, between celebrating the championship all year, also capitalizing on that championship by getting the UConn brand out there anywhere and everywhere that he could, but also buckling down on things. I think this trip to Europe is a great bonding exercise for a team that is going to be bringing in some new people to join holdovers from the championship team. Good. Clingon was in a limited role last year. Anxious to see what that looks like full time. Anxious to see what Samson Johnson looks like when he gets on the court, and maybe just the right number of minutes to have an impact. And everyone is so impressed with Stephon Castle, particularly his build. I mean, he really looks the part for a freshman. I mean, I think he's going to be a big star. People are talking about him being a lottery pick along with Clingon. So, I think they couldn't be in a better place. I mean, they really couldn't. Repeating is difficult, but getting deep into the tournament, again, I don't think that's off the table by any means. So I think it's going to be another fun year for them.
So that tournament had a bunch of NBA talent running around, and we were talking about Donavan a lot with a lot of those guys and just, try and pick their brains of what they thought as far as his potential goes. And a lot of people, I have this thought too, that kid could have been in the league this year and just been a rim protector, probably had 10, 12 years in the league, just being 7 foot and, nothing more, nothing less. For him to guard a Joel Embiid, for him to guard a Karl Anthony Towns, for him to actually be a huge piece on an NBA team, we haven't seen that kind of stuff. We kind of point a lot last year. Then back to the pick and roll for Donavan Clingon this year.
Oh, absolutely. I think you'll see him test a 3-point shot, and I think he's better at it. He's always been better at it. I think he's done more of it at this point than Adama did when he got there. See, Donavan put in a position to display himself to the NBA, to display the kind of skills that you're talking about. I think that's something that Dan Hurley is very good with, is understanding that part of winning and part is recruiting. Part of recruiting is showing kids that you can get them to the NBA. So I think he's going to, while certainly not subjugating the interest of winning, he's going to put Donavan Clingon in positions to ready himself for the NBA. And, one thing that's very fortunate from UConn's standpoint, guys, is that NIL is here now. Because if you didn't have NIL, Clingon probably would have thrown his hat in the ring last year and gone to the NBA, ready or not, much the way Andre Drummond did after 1 year and played his 10 years in the league. But with NIL, it's very much worth his while to come back to UConn and put that money in his pocket while taking that year to get better and grow in terms of maturity, grow in terms of leadership, and maybe take a run at another title. So I think you could probably thank the NIL changes for maybe keeping Donavan Clingon at UConn, which is good for him and good for UConn.
Talking to Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant. Let's go to MLB. New York Yankees. Last time they were 60-60 was 1995. They're in last place, 14 behind the Orioles, 6.5 out in the wild card. Just your thoughts in general of the future of the New York Yankees front office, Aaron Boone, guys like that, and do you just destroy this team if they don't make the postseason this year?
Well, I think one of the problems that they have sometimes is that they are fooled by making the postseason. I think, last year, and I think I might have said this when I was on with you last fall. You couldn't go into last off season looking at this as a 99-win team. You had to look at it as a team that was 500 the whole second half. No one should be surprised that they're at 500 now. That's what they were the whole second half of the year. Yeah. So of last year. They've been basically a 500 team for well over 200 games now. So, they do need to, I think, blow things up. They need to maybe take a page out of Steve Cohen's book and eat some contracts to move some people and just bite the bullet on some guys to make some changes. They're probably limited in some of the things that they can do, but they do have the money to go out and pursue other players who are not past their prime because you have to spend that money wisely. My feeling is that the Yankees really need to look at things top to bottom and take an entirely new approach to things. Every team uses analytics. Analytics aren't going to go away, but are the Yankees using them right? Are they using the right analytics? Do they have the right people applying those analytics? Every team, the front office has a lot more, does a lot more meddling with the field manager than ever before. But are the Yankees maybe doing too much of that? Maybe with a manager like, let's say, Dusty Baker, who certainly takes plenty of instruction from the front office, but is also a baseball guy who does things largely his way. Would that be the answer for the Yankees? So the Yankees, I think, just need to, even if they snuck into the playoffs, and I don't think they will, because what have you seen to indicate that they're going to catch Toronto at this point? I haven't seen a thing. But I do think they need to take a look top to bottom at how they run things and change them. And, having said that, Brian Cashman is a guy that probably should be in the Hall of Fame someday based on his body of work with the Yankees. But every GM has an expiration date. And I wouldn't be surprised if he were to resurface somewhere else and have great success. He's a good baseball man. He's a very smart guy. But maybe things have just run its course with the Yankees, and maybe he needs a change of scenery, and they need another voice, another decision maker in that role. So I foresee big changes for the Yankees if they don't make the playoffs. If they do make the playoffs and it's an early exit somehow, they should still think the same way. I think with the number of teams making the playoffs, you can't just look at the playoffs as some kind of a baseline achievement. You have to look at the record. The Yankees needed to look at the second half of last season, not the fact that they ended up with 99 wins and won a playoff series.
I want to know your thoughts on the team they're about to play this weekend. The Boston Red Sox have put things together against a bunch of should-win teams, Kansas City, Detroit, and now with the Washington Nationals. They win a couple more games, they're going to sneak into that bottom part of the wild card, but they got the Yankees, Astros, Dodgers, Astros on the docket here in the next few series. Do they have enough arms? Do you like what you see? Do you think that the Boston Red Sox are a for real contender if they got into the playoffs?
I don't know if they're a for real contender in the playoffs. I don't know if they have the pitching to drive that home. But I do think that for a year that was largely considered to be a write-off year, I feel like they're playing with house money. They stayed in it and got Story back. They stayed in it and they've got Sale back. They didn't give up anybody at the deadline. So they've, I think they could possibly catch Toronto. You're talking about should-win teams. When was the last time the Yankees won a series against a should-win team? Kansas City, but
yep.
they're it's supposed to be a great bullpen. Look at the rubber games they've lost that they've really thrown away out of their bullpen. The Red Sox are holding on to those games. So, I could see the Red Sox sneaking into the playoffs. I don't see them going far once they're there. Houston bolstered with, with Verlander is obviously going to be as big a threat certainly as they were last year. And Texas, what they've been doing all year. Toronto, obviously they've got Giolito now. They're going to be tough. But I do think the Rays. But I do think that for what is basically a free year, a house money year, I think the Red Sox got to be happy with where they're sitting and maybe go out and pick up a couple of big pieces in the off season and go over and be a real contender next year.
All right, give me some Yankee lore. My friends are up at Cooperstown. They're playing all week in the 12U tournament up there, and they were just there today, and they asked me if I could swing the Babe Ruth bat, which was a 40-ounce bat, by the way. Give me some. He was 6'2", about what? About 180, 85, somewhere in there. How does this guy swing a 40-ounce bat like that and hit all those home runs?
If you look at him, particularly when he was younger, before he got real heavy around the middle, he was a hitter. If you look at some of the films, he had this tremendous leverage. He had long legs, and kind of and kind of big shoulders. And when you hear you think of him as being as big as like Mark McGwire, or being as big as guys like that, and he was nowhere near it. But he had tremendous, leverage. And the bats that they swung in those days were very heavy, but they were not as top heavy as the bats are today. They were heavy because they had very thick handles. I wouldn't be surprised if he never broke a bat because they were so thick in the handle. So although they weighed a lot, they were a little bit different in terms of balance. If you take a bat that weighed that much, but all the weight was in the barrel and the handle and the neck were real thin like they are today, that would have been much harder for him to buggy whip with a bat like that than the bat he was swinging. So his bat was very heavy, but I think the balance was a little bit different, and that's what allowed him to swing it, along with just the great leverage in terms of the way he was built. And the other thing too, Rob. How many 100-mile-an-hour fastballs do you think they saw in the 20s and 30s?
Right, and how many specialized relievers were coming out of the bullpen to get him?
Exactly. I mean, those the roundhouse curve, which was like a blooper pitch, was a big up in the arsenal in those days. And you've probably seen the film where he takes like 2 steps forward and hits the ball, right?
He did walk up in the box a lot.
He walked up in the box a lot, yeah. So, So yeah, I mean, it was a different game. But I think the bat that he swung probably, a function of his leverage and just the way the weight was distributed in the bat.
So we had 2 baseball sideshows in town, one on Friday, one on Monday over there at the Dunk. Home Run Derby X, Mr. Dibble was a part of, Major League Baseball Home Run Derby X, which was a lot of fun. A lot of people were watching it there. And then the Savannah Bananas on the Monday. And I know you were in the house for Home Run Derby X. Did they let you into the Broadway show of the Savannah Bananas, or were you not big enough for them?
They finally did. They asked me, who I wrote for and what the reach was.
That's awesome.
And,
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Thomas Jefferson took us to court and lost. Yeah. So that's kind of that's pretty good reach right there.
So what did you think? What did you think of both of them?
Well, the Home Run Derby I thought was a lot of what are these events for? Are they for old fogies like us who are looking for like a real baseball game? No, they're for kids, and I thought the kids loved them. Kids can't get enough of the Savannah Bananas thing. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters. It's a baseball-themed carnival or baseball-themed circus, baseball-themed comedy show, and on that level, it's a huge success. So, I don't see the Savannah Bananas as a threat to baseball or a threat to our way of life. I think for what they do, they succeed magnificently. And as far as the Home Run Derby goes, is it something that you could do every year and it's going to have legs? I don't know, but it sure seemed like a lot of fun and people liked it. People enjoyed it. I think the people they had doing it, played to the audience and played it right. I mean, Nick Swisher, you just wonder, what planet he's from sometimes, right? With that personality. But, God bless him. He's never changed. So I just thought they were 2 fun summer events, great for the late summer when time's running out on the kids. They're going to be going back to school soon. And I just thought for the people, the audience it was intended for, it was a great show. 2 great shows.
Well, sir, thank you so much. Friday, I saw you for the first time out. You look amazing. You look 20 years younger. So God bless you, Dom. Love you, man.
Dom's a man.
Yeah, well, that's more probably more a testament to how out of control things were before. But yeah, I do. I certainly feel 20 years younger.
Beautiful.
So I appreciate that.
Well, keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Dom, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, the only thing they needed for the Bananas, by the way, is for you to suit up for the other side and plunk somebody. That's what it needed.
Yes,
I'm in. I'm in. They didn't ask me, but I was available. Certainly would love that stuff. I'm not getting on the stilts, though. That was scary. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and do the first dibs question of the day.